Welcome to the first episode of whatever this is. Well, I mean, it's a podcast, of course, obviously. I have a microphone, I'm in my room, I'm spreading my stupid opinions. I just don't know what to call it yet, you know? There's no working title for this quite yet. I was thinking, nah, fuck that. You know what? We're just going to call it, because I'm feeling lazy, Panda's Media Corner. So, welcome to the first episode of Panda's Media Corner. This is a podcast where I'm just going to rant about movies and other things. I'm going to start talking about movies and then probably rant about something else completely different at many points throughout the time. But hey, guess what? We need an hour of runtime, and we're going to get it. And if that means going on tangents, brother, strap in. There's going to be a lot of them. So, with everything going on in the world right now, I figured the best way to kick off, this little possibly stupid journey of mine would be to talk about the summer of cinema for 2025, because I felt this was actually a pretty solid year for the cinema. I think not only were there some really good films that got released this summer, but I also think that the different types of films we were getting gives me hope for, bringing different types of genres back to the movies, because they're finally able to make money and have an audience again, because for a while we all know there were some fucking summers where the only time people were getting their butts in the theater was for the next big superhero thing, and, maybe outside of, Top Gun Maverick. But Top Gun Maverick, I mean, that's TC, baby. That's Tommy Cruise teaming up with Joseph motherfucking Kosinski, another guy we're going to talk about on here. And they're just cooking. They're just like, yo, what if we made a fucking cool-ass movie with jets and a surrogate dad and, a lot of dudes, myself included, a lot of people in general just saw that movie and were just like, dude, fuck yeah, we're so back. That's a movie where you can be at your worst and then you'll put on Top Gun Maverick and the movie will look at you and be like, hey, buddy, you've been feeling down about yourself lately, haven't you? And you're like, yeah, I have been feeling down about myself. And then the movie's like, well, I'm here to remind you that dudes fucking rock. And you're like, what? And it's like, yeah, dudes fucking rock. And you're just like, fuck yeah, dude. But yeah, people were just not getting in the theater unless it was MCU. And then because the MCU oversaturated the market with the proliferation of 1,000 fucking TV shows and additional properties to the movies, and also because the quality of the movies diminished a little bit throughout Phase 4 and Phase 5, even the MCU has started to lose some goodwill with its audience, I mean, sure, was Deadpool and Wolverine the most, profitable movie of 2024? Yes, but, 2023, Quantumania and shit like that did do a lot of damage to Marvel's reputation. When you release, a few too many stinkers in too short of a time period, people remember that shit, and you lose your integrity and you lose their faith as the audience in the integrity of your product that you're trying to give to them, So, I'm not saying I'm a genius, but, Kevin, just pump the brakes a little bit. You've been doing a better job. The movies Marvel put out this year weren't even that bad, but because they lost that goodwill with the audience, less people showed up for them, which is an unfortunate thing for Marvel, and, we'll see what they do with Secret Wars. This is not a Marvel podcast. I want to clarify. I don't know why I got on this stupid tangent. I honestly forgot what I was even talking about in the first place. Anyways, I just like that there were a lot of different types of movies that were getting people in the theaters this summer. So, right off the bat, let's just get into it. We're going to start with the disappointments / the bad movies of this summer. Now, this is so hard to say, man, because I was really looking forward to this film. I was so jazzed up, but Materialist might be the most disappointing movie of the summer for me. I was so fucking hyped to, get a rom-com back. And then I got a very boring, middling romantic drama with somewhat weak characters, okay writing, some pretty good cinematography, not that many good jokes, and a somewhat clunky and almost misguided message, especially in the economic state of this fucking world. I mean, let's be honest. To like the 4 women that might be listening to this podcast, if you had to choose between like a suave, debonair billionaire who might have gotten some shin lengthening surgery and might be like a little weird or a little guarded, would you really discard that man for a dude who's in his mid-30s and is a fucking cater waiter, barely making enough to live in some, like, shithouse apartment in New York? Like, come on. I get it in the movie. He's, like, a struggling actor. But, like, come on, dude. You've seen how expensive shit's getting. You're never going to be able to afford a house anywhere in that fucking economy being a starving artist, okay? No matter how noble you may think the artistic pursuit is, brother, bills have to be paid. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for expressing your art, but, like, there's a point where it's like, hey, man, when you're in your mid-30s and all you're doing is, like, weird, like, off-Broadway, small stage plays, maybe it's time to hang it up, man. Even Jordan had to hang it up, man. And, you know, when he was on the Wizards for a few years, he was like, man, I just don't got it anymore. Except the difference is, you're not Michael Jordan. You haven't won 6 rings. You've done 6 community theater plays. Anyways, this movie, like, I feel like I went into it wanting a traditional rom-com. I wanted some shit like Failure to Launch. You know, I wanted like a good love triangle where there were jokes and where we actually got like a strong or like a decent narrative where we saw Chris Evans as like, you know, the down on his luck, scruffy kind of, you know, middle-class working guy prove himself to be a better match for Dakota Johnson than Pedro Pascal. And it felt like there was just really no proving of why he was a better match for her. It just feels more like, honestly, if I'm being real, it feels more like Dakota Johnson's character just kind of settled because she was like, yeah, I guess I was happy for like a period of time with this guy, so might as well go back to it. And it's like, girl, no, leave him. Find someone better. You can find someone who's just as genuine and makes you feel just as special as this person, but is also like actually willing to put in the effort and like do the stuff he needs to do to economically provide. Because like that's one of my biggest things with this film is by the end of this film, it doesn't show like Chris Evans getting like a better job or moving out of his apartment. It just shows them like back together and being like, oh, we should get married now because we're so in love again because I don't care that you're poor anymore. You know what I mean? And like I just don't know if that's the message we need to be putting out to women nowadays, you know? If anything, I say get that fucking bag, you know? I'm an opportunist, you know? There's a reason I have a podcast, Mike, okay? Like, listen, we've got 20 episodes until I start grifting, okay? We've got 20 episodes until I start talking about the Great Replacement. So count it down. But, like, seriously, this movie just felt so disappointing. And here's the thing, some of the technical aspects of it were good, but goddamn, the characters and the narrative was just so underwhelming. And, like, the reason her and Pedro Pascal break up, it feels less convincing than, like, when they, like, in like a standard rom-com, right? Like instead of just Dakota Johnson discovering that Pedro Pascal is truly a short king who kind of cheated the system, and that being her thing where she's like, I just don't know if I can trust you and if we can really love each other going forward or some shit like that. I don't even fully fucking remember because that's how like gone from my mind this movie is at this point because I don't like thinking about it. But in like a standard rom-com, they would show like Pedro Pascal cheating on Dakota Johnson, or they would show like how he kind of ignores her emotional needs more, and it would give you a reason to like root for Chris Evans because you're like, oh, he's better for her, he understands her better, he can take better care of her, he cares about her more. You know, the old rom-coms of the past would go out of their way to do that, and yet Celine Song can't fucking do that here. So guess what, Celine? You are on fraud watch, okay? I liked Past Lives, and your husband's work in Challengers was great. That was one of my favorite movies of 2024. But as of now, Celine, you are on fraud watch, okay? So that's my piece on Materialist. I give it a Honestly, a 3 out of 10. Because as someone who has been, like, in a relationship before where money has been a struggle and I was the one struggling to hold up my end of the bargain, it fucking sucks watching that on film. You know? It sucks, like, kind of having to do this therapeutic exercise through a movie. And, like, I know, like, from my perspective that, like, I wouldn't have got back with me if I hadn't made substantial changes to, like, you know, my ability not only to support myself, but my ability to actually take care of myself, like, mentally and going to therapy and shit. You know what I mean? And yet Chris Evans is just like, I think you're really pretty, and I like you, and I want to have grandkids with you, and somehow that's fucking enough. Jesus. Anyways, it's not even, like, handsome, beefed up Captain America Chris Evans with the giant tits and huge arms. No, he's all skinny and scruffy. Alright, anyways, now on to the second biggest disappointment, and goddamn, probably the most forgettable movie of the summer for me. Jurassic World Rebirth. That's it. Like, I'm no longer giving Gareth Edwards the benefit of the doubt. You're on fraud watch, Gareth. Sorry, I had to drink my Gatorade. No, because first off, I have had beef with Gareth Edwards ever since 2014 Godzilla, okay? That man promised 2 things in the trailer, and you can blame Lionsgate for it. I don't fucking care. Bryan Cranston, Godzilla. Bryan Cranston gets killed 30 fucking minutes in. Godzilla's barely in the fucking movie. Like, if you cut Godzilla's screen time in King of the Monsters in half, even in quarters, it would probably be still 4 times as much screen time as he fucking had in the first Godzilla movie, which I'll never get over that. Shout out to King of the Monsters, though. That movie's so sick. I might actually watch that after I'm done with this, because now I'm thinking about how awesome that... Like, think about it. In the first Godzilla, it's a lot of boring Aaron Taylor Johnson shit, and then shots of, like, Godzilla's feet as he destroys stuff, which I guess is cool for the spectacle. And Gareth Edwards does do a good job with spectacle filmmaking and communicating the scale of stuff effectively. However, in King of Monsters, Ken Watanabe nukes Atlantis to bring Godzilla back to life. That might sound like an insane sentence, but it happens in the movie, and it's fucking awesome, okay? So, like, Gareth Edwards has always been on fraud watch for me. I thought the creator was good. I like Rogue One. However, Jurassic World Rebirth, man. Holy fuck, dude. First off, we don't need to do the genetic splice dinos. I don't know why these people don't think that, like, dinosaurs on their own are cool enough. There are so many different types of dinosaurs. The problem is you don't got real fucking nerds in the producer's corner. You don't got real fucking nerds on set being like, yo, here's this kind of dinosaur from this era, you know? I'm not as, like, tapped in with dinosaurs as I used to be when I was a kid, just because when I was a kid, dinosaurs were one of my main interests, dude. I fucking love dinosaurs. Like, dude, I had this Flash game my parents used to have, right? And I almost broke the fucking computer in the house replaying that Flash game all the fucking time just because, dude, it's dinosaurs. Dude, dinosaurs are so fucking cool. They're giant fucking reptiles. You know? Sick. And then they turned into birds. But, like, this whole, like, movie's, like, establishing premise of, like, the dinosaurs are dying when they're not in, like, temperate climates. It's like, okay. It, like, sets up all this stuff, and then it does nothing interesting with it. And, oh my god, man. I thought, like, some of the characters in Gareth's movies before were, like, bare bones and not very well written. Holy shit, man. Like, I cannot tell you a single thing about any of the characters outside of, like, I think, like, Scarlett Johansson in the movie, like, a friend of hers died recently before the fucking mission or something, and this is me, like, scraping the bottom of the barrel of my brain trying to find what I can remember. And then a guy wore glasses and was just, like, a nerd who's like, oh, look at these marvelous creatures. We can't just collect their blood and use it to, you know, push profiteering, you know, on pharmaceuticals. We have to use this to help people, and we have to respect these beautiful creatures. It's like, yeah, we get it, science bitch. We're trying to print that money, okay? We're trying to print that money. Big pharma. What you know about that, huh? What you know about stacking 10 bands off, the opioid crisis? You know nothing about that. That's why you're a nerd and you work at a failing museum. You ain't stacking money like me, Mr. Businessman. That's why I'm the one introducing the mission. Mahershala Ali's in this. It's interesting how he's in this, yet we still don't have a Blade movie. That's really fucked up. I'm sorry they made you be in this, Mahershala. Your talents were wasted on this, man. You're too good of an actor to be in movies like this. I'm not saying that it's like your fault for it. It's more so like your agent or whoever made you do this, whoever like told you this was a good idea, man. Like, I'm sorry. They sold you some bullshit. I could have told you that Gareth Edwards' Jurassic Park wouldn't be the greatest idea, okay? I watched Godzilla, as you all heard, okay? I'm not a fan. The problem with this movie is that, one, there's like the whole genetic splicing thing with the dinos where you get this like weird homunculus creatures that are like strange hybrids of different kind of dinosaurs. But then like the movie shows you stuff and it never capitalized on this. Like one of my single biggest gripes with this movie is like, why the fuck would you show me the scene with the T-Rex and then not have the T-Rex and the deformed dino fight each other? Like that's what we were all waiting for. We were waiting for this like genetic monstrosity to fight, the peak of the predators. You know what I mean? He was supposed to fight the T-Rex in the same way the Indominus Rex had to fight the T-Rex. Like if you want to be the top dog of the dinosaur kingdom, you got to go through one motherfucker, and that's the T-Rex. And yet this dude, this odd head-shaped ass dinosaur is just roaming around the island. Plus, like, oh my god, the fucking fake out with Mahershala Ali's death just to reveal that he's alive. I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I was so scared something of actual consequence was gonna happen in the film. Oh no, oh god. And like when I first saw the movie, it was like. It was almost like this like weird Trojan horse where because it was so boring, it lulled my sensibilities into being like, that was all right. It wasn't too bad. But then as I tried to like think more and more about what I actually liked, it was like, did I actually like this movie? Or did I just kind of actually turn my brain off and not even try to pick this film apart because I wasn't expecting much from it? And even on that premise, it didn't deliver a ton. So this is another boring disappointment of a movie. I gotta give Jurassic World Rebirth a 3 out of 10. 3 out of 10 is like the worst score. And also, just a reminder to all of you, when we work on the out of 10 scale, anything above 5 is technically a good score. So don't come after me if I say one of your favorite movies is like a 7 or a 7.5. That's a good score. Anyways, now it's time to move on to just kind of forgettable movies. And honestly, outside of Jurassic World Rebirth, the most forgettable movie of the summer season was Nobody 2. Also, real quick, let me define what I mean by the summer season. When I say the summer season for movies, I mean kind of like mid-late May to like the end of August, because that's like the summer blockbuster season. That's where like the big movies with the big stars and the big budgets are coming out mostly, and so I think this is the best period of time to establish as like the summer for cinema. As we get into like September, the fall months, the colder months, that's where we see more of the Oscar stuff, and I mean the shit that's like meant to sweep up an award season. I mean, fuck man, look at it right now. I mean, you got One Battle After Another coming out next week, PTA movie, and then after that you've got The Smashing Machine coming out, which is Safdie and The Rock trying to get The Rock an Oscar, but yeah, I just feel like that's a good time for him to set for it. But yeah, Nobody, I watched the first Nobody with my dad like a week before going to see this, and I thought it was a solid action movie for what it was, just a movie about like old dudes being badass. I thought it was fun, and I thought it was like, it kind of had this cheeky self-awareness where it's kind of making fun of how like a lot of the action stars of the current day that aren't like superhero movie action stars are like a bunch of old dudes like Keanu and Tom Cruise, which The Naked Gun also makes fun of this. It's just The Naked Gun was a lot better, so we'll talk about that later. Nobody 2, Felt like it was trying to hit a lot of the same beats from the first film, but it was... it's hard for me to describe it. This movie was just boring. And I hate saying just boring because that's such a banal way to describe it, and it's very vague and it doesn't offer any further insight into why I found it boring. I think the main reason I found it boring was because turns out it's shot very procedural. It feels almost at times like it's kind of shot like a TV show. The writing is very hey, we're getting from here to here to here. There's some character development, some things we learn about, is his name Hutch? Yeah, Hutch. And his family, their background, their past, but it's nothing too crazy. The world building isn't anything special. It's not like they're expanding greatly upon the lore of the first film and opening this thing up to where it's it could be a franchise with a continuation. No, I honestly think these movies should stop after this one. Because I think you could have stopped after the first one and you have a really fun, well-made, one-off action movie. You know what I mean? But as is the case, if it makes money, you gotta wring as much money out of it as you can, okay? There can't be any moisture left in that towel, you understand me? You gotta really just wring it out, and that's what they did, and it was it's all right. That's the nicest I can be. 4 out of 10. I'm sorry, Odenkirk. Dude, you're fucking hilarious, dude. But this was... Whoo! Anyways. Now we're on to the horror movie section of my list. First, I want to talk about Bring Her Back. Bring Her Back was probably one of the, viscerally most unsettling movies I saw this year. Just some of the images and some of the places it went with its horror really just whoo, they really gave me the heebie-jeebies, and I did the kind of surrealist aspect of Sally. Sorry, fuck. I got totally off track there. I did like how, you slowly saw Sally Hawkins start to psychologically manipulate the people in the house. I thought the child actors, I don't know if the older one's a child, he probably wasn't, but I thought the one who played the blind girl, she did a great job. Her older brother did a great job in the film. All around, good performances. The person who played the demon kid, fantastic physical performance. That was a performance that was mostly carried with no verbal acting really. Yeah, they were making noises, but a lot of it was body language, and they did that so well. I don't know the young actor's name, but whoever it was, they did a fantastic job. I thought this movie was shot really well. I thought the editing made it flow really well. Because, horror movies are usually on the shorter end, an hour 40. But there are horror movies that just fucking drag. And they can feel like they're over 2 hours, even when they're an hour 40. This was not the case. This movie flew by. I also liked the exploration of the characters' traumas and how Sally Hawkins also kind of manipulates that to try and get in between the siblings. This was a solid film. This was a really good horror movie. I liked it a lot. And this was a horror movie that got a full spectrum of emotions. It scared me. It had moments that made me laugh. But then the sibling narrative touched me because, I'm an older brother and, I care a lot about my younger sister. So seeing a good sibling narrative, it kind of hit me in the feels. I did cry a little bit and, I'm sitting here, I'm there with my friend and I'm just yo, who the fuck is cutting onions in here, man? They need to fucking stop, man. But overall, good movie. I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Yeah. Next up, Together. God, these movies where I'm having to relive certain elements of my relationships, and where I'm having to hear people have arguments that I feel like I've had before, they're so fun. They're the best thing ever. They're totally not fucking annoying. What can I say? I'm a man. I don't like doing introspection. Anyways, Together was solid. This was another movie like Bring Her Back that had, some cult and ritual stuff, which, by the way, this year, big year for cult and rituals. Anybody who's seen him and some of these other horror movies knows what I'm talking, okay? There's been a lot of rituals and a lot of cults doing freaky deaky shit in horror movies this year, okay? But there was, like, the cult aspect with, like, the people conjoining and becoming one. There's, like, the people who properly fused together. Then there's, like, the people who, like, became, like, weird Dark Souls creatures that just live in the fucking cave. Just, oh, dude, that shit freaked me the fuck out when I saw it the first time. But Dave Franco and Alison Brie, for two people who are like genuinely in love and seem to have a healthy relationship, god damn, they are good at playing people in a dysfunctional relationship or like a decaying relationship. Because holy shit, they really sell you on these people just like, kind of having enough of each other, or at least Alison Brie at times having enough of like Dave Franco, which in this movie you kind of get, because it's like this dude's just like a depressed guy who's like, I don't feel like making music, and it's just like affecting every other part of his life. And Alison Brie's over here just like, dude, I'm like hot and you don't want to bang me, and then I try to propose to you at this party with our fucking friends and you decide to be all weird and shit about it. Oh, dude, and then all the weird like body horror shit starts happening. Oh, fuck, dude, that stall scene. That shit, like, shook me to my fucking core. That was, like, when you heard it just snap back after they finally pulled it apart. Yeah, that was rough to listen to, okay? Very rough. All right? But overall, I think this movie, I think its themes, I also think its ending, and the fact that they just did a Go Tanks fusion at the end of the movie is pretty funny. But, I like its idea of, like, examining codependence and relationships and stuff like that. And, even though it was another annoying therapy exercise for me, I do overall think it was a pretty good movie. I do. I think Dave Franco and Alison Brie did good jobs in their roles. I thought it was shot pretty well. I thought, it didn't, fall into the pitfall of, like, using jump scares and, trying to use bullshit tactics to scare the audience. It built up legit, like, a legit sense of, like, unsettling fear, And that's what I look for in a good horror movie. So, for Together, we're going to give it a 7 out of 10. Good movie. Now, we're moving on to the great horror movie. Because there was a great horror movie that came out this summer, and it was by Zach Cregger's Weapons. Let me tell you one thing. I am so happy that, like, more funny guys are making horror movies, because now horror movies feel more accessible to me. Because one of the biggest problems with the horror genre for me up until this point is, like, there's no fucking jokes. Are we going to have any levity in here besides the moment where I laugh at some absurdly dark shit because I find it funny in that absurd way, and people look at me weird? Like, I remember, I'm sorry, random tangent, I remember when I was a kid, and I was, like, at this fucking, like, movie night freshman year of high school, right? And everybody, like, because it's a bunch of fucking freshman girls, they all wanted to put on an Insidious movie, right? Insidious Part 3. Not even one of the good ones directed by James Wan. One of the bad ones. And I remember I was just having such a miserable time watching the movie. Part of that could have been influenced by the fact that my first ever girlfriend broke up with me shortly before that, and I had to be in the same house as her that night. Which, like, that's a whole other rant. But anyways, I'm watching this, like, dog shit Insidious movie. And, like, the only thing I can ever remember from this movie is this hilarious scene where this girl's just in the middle of the road and just gets fucking pasted by a car, dude. And I remember me and this other dude, we literally rewinded it a few times just because it was so funny. But anyways, because there are, like, dudes who used to work in comedy now getting into horror movies, I feel like you're seeing a lot more horror comedies that can effectively make you laugh, but are also going to scare the shit out of you at points. And that's exactly what Zach Cregger's did with Weapons. I was a big fan of Barbarian. I remember I watched that one night back in like 2023, and I was like legitimately impressed with the film. I was like, damn, that was a actually really good horror movie. And so I was excited to see what Cregger's was going to do with Weapons. And let me just say, he did not disappoint, okay? Another movie with rituals and stuff, but for one, I really like the structure of the storytelling, giving us chapters from different perspectives of different characters, and like laying out the context for certain elements of the stories through those chapters, even though they might come at different times in the movie, I think was a great way of keeping the audience engaged and revealing information to the audience in a way that kept them engaged throughout the film. I think Zachary Cregger's has demonstrated a great skill when it comes to how he like kind of edits and paces his films at this point. You know, he knows how to give you just enough information to keep you hooked, but not too much to where you can figure out the plot for yourself, which I really like. Performances yet again were solid. I liked the dude who I can't remember his name, fucking Han Solo from Solo, which one day I will rant about Solo because I am an ardent fucking defender of that movie. It's just a space heist movie, and I fucking love Ocean's 11. But he was really good as the shitty fucking cop in this movie. I liked that, honest to the true profession of being a cop, he is not only bad at his job, but he's also a bad husband. That's on brand, brother. Back the blue. Also, I did not expect a horror movie to have some of the best representation of a crackhead I've seen in years. What, the character James? Oh my god. Zachary, thank you so much for putting that in there. You didn't have to put a character like that in there, but you did, and I feel like you did it for guys like me. And you know what? I appreciate that, Zach. Overall, though, this is a solid film. Josh Brolin is also really good in this movie. Benedict Wong, even though he has a small part, is fucking great. And if you've seen those clips of that one scene, he's fucking terrifying in that scene, dude. Oh my god. The woman who plays the witch, also very like unsettling. I liked her performance a lot. I think the kids that were tasked with acting in this movie, I think the child performance, especially from don't remember, was the kid's name Jack or Henry? I can't quite remember, but the one kid from the class who's like still around, I really liked his performance. I think he did a great job for a child actor. This film's edited really well. It has great pace. I also think the music's really solid. I think this movie does a great job of building an atmosphere of tension and unease, especially at moments where it's not using a ton of sound. Like, there are moments in this film, where there's like barely any sound being used, and you are just waiting to hear something. You know, you're waiting for that pin to drop. And, man, Cregger's, you done went crazy with this one, Cregger's. But, yeah, I got to give this one an 8.5 out of 10. This was a great horror movie. This was another solid addition to Cregger's filmography, and I can't wait to see what he does next, you know. It's funny how we have two dudes with, Eggers' last names kind of making their mark on, horror genre filmmaking. I think that's really cool, especially with how much I love Robert Eggers. Anyways, now that we're done talking about the disappointments, the forgettables, and horror movies, it's time to move on to what summer's all about. The motherfucking fun-ass flicks, okay? We're talking movies that are anywhere between, like, a 7 to an 8 out of 10, but they're a good-ass time, okay? Now, I want to start this one off with Mission Impossible 8, Final Reckoning. Is this the best Mission Impossible movie? No. Fallout is still better, dude. Henry Cavill reloading his arms. Plus, dude, I don't know what it is, man. The action in Fallout is just so good. But this one was really solid, too. The plot's really not that hard to follow. It's really not. Like, do they sometimes get a little convoluted in these Mission Impossible stories? Yeah, but it's pretty simple. Tom Cruise just got to, shut down the AI before the AI decides to go nuclear and wipe out people. That's what Tom Cruise has got to do. Now, the means and how he's going to do it might change and might get a little weird and crazy, but that's just Mission Impossible, baby. That's why the mission's so impossible, because it has to be done through these insane means. And you know who's the only guy who's going to get it done? Motherfucking Ethan Hunt. And I will say, you can notice how in some of these more recent films, like, Cruise has had to, kind of take a step back when it comes to the sheer insanity of his stunts. Don't get it twisted. This man is still doing crazy shit. He's hanging off a fucking plane in this movie, But at the same time, it's not quite the same spectacle as when he hung off the Burj Khalifa. You know what I mean? Or when that motherfucker was flying a goddamn helicopter through the mountains after Henry Cavill. But still, MI8 was solid. I liked Haley Atwell. I did like the way they handled Luther's death. I think Ving Rhames' scene that he got to have with Tom Cruise was nice because he is one of those OGs. He's been around since the beginning. I liked the ending. Them all meeting, giving Ethan the thing. I don't remember what the fuck it's called. And then him just smiling and being like, haha, yeah, I'm Ethan Hunt. That's right, bitch. It's like, fuck yeah, you are, dude. Thank you, Tom Cruise. And honestly, I think for a send-off to a franchise that long and that has retained its place in cinema across 3 decades now, I think it did what it was supposed to do. I also like the way it reincorporated the guy from Mission Impossible 1. I thought that was really nice. Bringing him in to kind of tie it all together. I like that. That was nice. This one, 7 out of 10. Thank you, Tom. I know I didn't have much to say about that one, but that's because I will do a Mission Impossible episode at some point, and I will rant about those films, because fuck, I love Mission Impossible. Jokes landed super well for me. I love how they spoof so many different parts of the action genre, and especially made fun of the fact that in Nobody, that all the action stars nowadays are just old guys. You know what I mean? It took a lot of time to. I'll say this. Had some technical difficulties, but now it's time to talk about what I saw as the funniest movie of the summer, the Naked Gun reboot. Now, I'm a big fan of the original Naked Gun. I love absurdist movies, and I love parody movies. The sense of humor and, the escalation of certain bits is just so funny to me. The ridiculous places that some people are willing to take even just a simple premise can be some of the funniest comedy ever put to film, in my opinion. I am a huge Leslie Nielsen fan, and I'm also a huge Mel Brooks fan. I'm also a big Edgar Wright fan. Hot Fuzz is one of my favorite movies of all time. Blazing Saddles is one of my favorite movies of all time. And so it makes sense that I would love The Naked Gun. And so I was initially concerned because it's do we need a reboot of The Naked Gun? I feel that movie's kind of just fine on its own. We have a whole series of them. We don't need a new version of this necessarily. But what gave me faith was seeing that Akiva Schaffer was directing it. Because I grew up on the internet, and Lonely Island was a formative part of my childhood, okay? I literally got in trouble with my parents for singing the chorus to Jizz in My Pants, okay? Now, at the time, did I know what jizz was? No. Did I learn, around puberty time what it was and why it might have been inappropriate for 8-year-old me to be singing that? Yes, but I still think it was funny. Anyways, I loved The Lonely Island. I love their parody songs. And as I got older, I found out that they made movies together like Hot Rod and Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping. And those are 2 of my favorite comedy films of the last 20 years. Straight up. Those are great, absurdist parody comedies. They just take simple jokes, simple premise, and just push it to the fucking extreme. And god damn it, it is fucking hilarious. If you ever want proof that Hot Rod is hilarious, watch the scene of when I forget what his character's name is, but when Andy Samberg's character goes to the woods to dance and then just falls down the fucking mountain. Or when they're about to go do the jump and then the whole town's gathering and it's that inspiring moment and then it just goes straight to shit and it turns into a riot. That's a funny joke to me. That's a good bit. and Hot Rod and Popstar Never Stops, Never Stopping are filled with those. And so I was hoping, because Akiva was directing this would be another film just kind of packed to the brim with solid jokes, And guess what? It was. I was really surprised just how many jokes they're throwing at you. It is just so rapid fire, which you don't see from a lot of comedies nowadays. You don't see the same, insane rate of jokes being thrown at the audience with every minute, it felt like not a single minute went by in this movie without some kind of joke. And in a comedy movie, I appreciate that, especially a comedy like this that's trying to be wacky and goofy. I want it to be trying to make me laugh as much as possible. If a comedy isn't trying to make me laugh as much as possible, it's not a fucking comedy movie. It's a different type of genre film that also uses comedy. But when I want to see a comedy movie, I just want to laugh my ass off. And that's what this movie gave me. Holy shit, man. Like, the bit, the Mission Impossible Fallout bit they did, making fun of that, hilarious. Also, the comments about the Broncos, like, midway through the film, love that shit. The joke about the Browns, hilarious. I'll say this. I think there are jokes in this movie that everybody can appreciate, but not everybody will appreciate this movie because of how many jokes are in it, if that makes any fucking sense. Like, yes, there's probably a joke that'll make someone laugh really hard, but that doesn't mean they'll like this movie. However, if you like absurdist parodies, if you like weird, wacky, fun shit, this is the movie for you, man. I am gonna give Naked Gun a 7.5 out of 10, baby. That's right. Now, before we move on to what I think was the most fun flick of the summer, it's time to talk about Marvel's first family. That's right. It's Fantastic Four time. Fantastic Four was a good, fun flick. Do I think it's like one of the absolute best MCU movies? No, not really. It's far from it. But I think for an introductory movie for these characters and this team, I thought it was pretty great. One could even say pretty fantastic. What'd you say? I said it's fantastic. My memers out there will know what the fuck I'm talking about. But Fantastic Four, it felt like with this movie, they finally got the Fantastic Four right. Because while the 2000s movies weren't like super terrible, I don't think those movies are that bad. You really didn't get like the spacefaring adventurers aspect of the Fantastic Four because they were trying to like modernize it in a sense, whereas in this adaptation of the Fantastic Four, they feel like their comic book counterparts. They feel like scientist astronauts that go into space to go on cool adventures and shit, Like when they went to space to find Galactus, that whole part of the film, I loved that shit, okay? And recently, because I liked the movie, I started reading the Hickman Fantastic Four run, and I had a great time with this, and I've loved getting more into the Fantastic Four over the past few months, dude. The more you learn about these characters, the more you respect them, and actually the more I've read about the Fantastic Four and the more comics I've read, the more I've been like, oh, I wish the film would have done this or this. But honestly, for what it was and for this team's entry point into the MCU, I think this was very solid. I also liked Galactus. I fucking forget who. Let me look this up because I know this guy. I like him because he's in The Witch, he's in The Northman, and he's also in Nosferatu. It's Ralph Ineson. Ralph Ineson is Galactus. He was great. I loved him. Is her name Julia Garner? I don't know the chick who played the Silver Surfer, but she was good too. I really liked Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm. Chris Evans was great as Johnny Storm in the 2000s, but they captured his funny side and they didn't capture enough of his one, his intelligent side, but two, his side that makes it so that he always wants to be a hero. He always wants to be the one diving in to save people and protect people because he is a hero at his core. That is who Johnny is, and this movie did that so fucking well, dude. Joseph Quinn, I might have thought you were a little weird playing that gay Roman twink in Gladiator 2, dude, but this was solid as hell. This and Warfare, dude, were solid as hell. Shout out to Joseph Quinn. Stop wearing such tight pants, though, dude. It's like you're trying to magnify your junk. I do hope they give Reed more to do in the next movies. But I feel like, honestly, even though this movie was establishing the team, this movie did a lot to establish Sue as, like, the heart of the team, which I think is really good because past iterations have just treated Sue like she's the girl on the team. You know, and, like, Sue's so much more than that. And in this adaptation of it, it felt like they really put Sue as, like, the emotional, like, core of the team and the emotional leader of the team, which I think is a really good choice for this version of Fantastic Four. So honestly, dude, Fantastic Four, very solid, and all the space stuff was awesome in IMAX. That was great. The whole space scene with, like, Reed finding a way to use a gravity well to launch them through a wormhole and, like, you know, kind of keep the, like, Silver Surfer trapped in this weird, like, temporal zone and, like, a fucking black hole was cool. Like, that's stuff the Fantastic Four would do. That's the stuff Reed Richards would think of on the fly. He's the smartest guy, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I hope they do more with him. I hope Ben gets a little bit more in the next movies. And God, I swear to you, Kevin, if you fuck up Victor Von Doom, I am going to shove this microphone up your ass. I'm not actually going to do that, but please get it right, Kevin. Doom is such a good character, and, like, after reading comics, I am concerned that they're going to get Doom wrong again. But for now, I'll take this good film. 7.5 out of 10. Now we're on to what I think is the best of the fun flicks of the summer, and that is F1. Oh my god, dude. Oh my god. This is just a cool ass movie, dude. One, it's directed by Joseph Kosinski, the motherfucker who made Top Gun Maverick, so you know it's gonna go hard. And it's another one of those movies, like, where it's like Maverick, a cool guy, but this time it's a cool guy who, instead of flying jets, he races cars. And this cool guy, he gets an opportunity to do the one thing he never could do due to, like, some horrific shit that happened in his past to him while doing it. And he gets a chance to reclaim glory and be an F1 champion driver, okay? And Brad Pitt as Sonny, whoa. If you thought Cliff Booth was cool, dude, Sonny will make Cliff Booth look like a bum, dude. Sonny is so smooth. He's so cool. He's so laid back, so, like, relaxed. Even when he's stressed, he somehow looks cool. Like, when you and me are stressed, we're, like, getting red in the face. We're sweating. We're like, oh, fuck, man. Oh, fuck. Whereas Brad Pitt, when he's stressed, he's like, what if I did pull-ups and crunches to make myself look sexier? And it's like, God, why didn't I think of that, Brad? You're so right, and you're so cool, and you're so hot. But, yeah, this movie's good. Damson Idris is solid in the movie, too. I really like, you know, even though you kind of get the direction of it, I like their little, like, mentor, you know, mentee relationship that they have, and how he comes to accept, you know, the advice and the insight that Sonny's trying to give him, and he comes to respect him more as a driver. And Sonny sees the potential in Samuel Pierce the whole time. He sees the potential. He knows he can be great, but, you know, it's just the kid gets in his own ways. He doesn't want to listen, you know? But then, you know, he gets in the lab. He realizes, oh, my God, Sonny was right. Maybe I should start listening. This old man is incredibly wise. And then at the end of the film, you know, when it's between the two of them, you know, Pierce is just like, hey, man, this is your moment. I got plenty of time, but this is your final chance. Take your moment. And God damn it, man. That scene at the end where he's just flying, dude. Ooh. So cool. And you got Hans Zimmer just going fucking ballistic in the background the whole time with the music. Just going absolutely sicko mode. You know? Jeez Louise. And then Javier Bardem. Oh my God. I cannot sing the praises of Javier Bardem enough. Like, no matter what fucking movie he's in, whether he's in Dune 2, F1, or this shitty fucking Little Mermaid remake, he is giving it 110%, dude. Shout out Javier Bardem, dude. I hope you know Javier. I fucking love you, dude. You're awesome. Never stop being who you are. You know? But yeah, this is just such a cool movie. From the way it's shot, to the way it's lit, to the way like characters just have this aura about them, you know what I mean? Like it the rule of cool supersedes how formulaic it is, okay? You can give me all like the film school criticisms of how it's a formulaic and trite plot that's been done over so many times, especially within the sports genre of film. Blah 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 blah. Race cars are cool. Newsflash, motherfucker. People like cool shit. You know? And I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, just let people enjoy things. But sometimes I'm like, films can be kind of formulaic and simple, but can still be good. It's like how people love Demon Slayer, even though Demon Slayer is a very standard by the numbers shonen. It's just a shonen that's executed really well, so a lot of people like it. You know? Like, I say this all the time, 7 to 7.5 out of 10 movies are like so appealing and have so much appeal because they're good enough to where like people who don't need like a super profound artistic message and experience can really enjoy it, but people who also have like may look for that can also still enjoy the technical merits of it and can enjoy that even though it's a simple story, it's done well, you know what I mean? And that's where I think F1 falls into. So F1 gets a 8 out of 10 from me. I liked F1 a lot. I also might be gay for Brad Pitt. We don't know. We'll see. That's something for me to figure out in time. Now, for the last two, we've got the great movies of this summer. These are movies that I would give like an 8.5 or more. And the first one on this list is going to be Caught Stealing, the new Darren Aronofsky film. Now, this one came out near the end of August, so I might be trying to sneak it in here on technicality, but this was a fantastic film. First off, Austin Butler, I have made so many jokes about you and your ridiculous Elvis voice for years, but I want you to know, after Fade Ralpha in this movie, I genuinely see you as one of the best working talents today. Like, you clearly are a great actor, you clearly are committed to your craft, and just this movie was fantastic. First off, Darren, thank you so much for putting Action Bronson in this movie, okay? I've been listening to Action Bronson for like 12 years now. And so seeing him in this movie was awesome. Also, Liev Schreiber and Vincent D'Onofrio as Hasidic Hebrews was very, very funny. Matt Smith is also looking very British in this movie. But the thing I was wondering the most going into this movie, because when I looked at the trailers, it looked like a fairly kind of normal movie. I was like, where's the fucked up Aronofsky shit? You know, where's the weird psychological tilt where you know, the character's struggling with some kind of mental illness, you know? And where's like some of the violent or some of the fuck shit that usually happens in an Aronofsky story? Because in the trailer you saw like some people get hit, but you're like, how's shit really gonna pop off in this movie? And honestly, with this movie, I don't want to spoil much because I feel like this is a movie where when you go in blind, you get the most out of it. But it's still a great movie. It's shot incredibly well. It's paced so well that you barely even feel its runtime. I think the acting is great. I think the writing is also very good in this movie. I think they did a good job with capturing the feeling of the era that this takes place in, because it obviously takes place in like late 90s, early 2000s. Austin Butler, I think this might be my favorite performance from him overall. Like, I do think like this is better than Elvis, I do think. And because it's a bigger part than Fade Ralpha, he gets more of a chance to flex his true skills as an actor here. You know, Fade Ralpha was more a showcase of his physicality and his voice in a role, but this is like a showcase of like the emotional range he can deliver in a role, you know what I mean? And yeah, it was really, really good. And you know, I was also pretty hyped for this movie because, like, shortly before seeing it, I went to go see The Black Swan 15th anniversary re-release. And, by the way, Black Swan, even 15 years later, one of the finest films of the 21st century. And I still think to this day it is Aronofsky's best work there is a level of polish and refinement in that movie that, like, it's almost as though, like, he's very careful in how he presents the chaos to you in that film in a way that makes it even harder for you and Natalie Portman's character to tell what's really real. And God, it's such a good fucking movie. I won't rant too much about Black Swan, but seeing Black Swan shortly before going to see this movie definitely kind of influenced how hype I was going in. But Darren ultimately delivered. You know, I think this is a great movie about just a guy who just cannot get a fucking break and has to finally confront himself and stop running away from shit, and has to grow up in some of the most extreme and fucked up and violent circumstances possible. But hey, man, everybody's got their different journey with adulthood. So yeah, shout out to Darren Aronofsky and Austin Butler. This movie gets an 8.5 out of 10. Now it's on to my favorite movie of the summer. The movie I was really amped up for. The movie that, if it wasn't good, I was going to be really pissed about. But luckily, it was better than I thought it was going to be. And that is Superman. I know some people might think it's, like, corny to put this movie as, like, my favorite movie of the summer, but I do genuinely think this is a great movie. And I think in the cultural moment we're in right now, when we're encouraged to be so negative, so hostile towards each other, a movie about the big blue Boy Scout that just emphasizes how much of a kind-hearted person he is, how much he cares about helping people, is kind of exactly what we needed right now. And God damn it, James Gunn. Like, I've been a James Gunn fan, you could say, since I was a kid, because I fucking love the 2000 Scooby-Doo movies, and he fucking wrote those. You know what I mean? But, like, I remember when I first saw Guardians of the Galaxy, and I was like, wow, that was a good movie. And then Guardians of the Galaxy 2 made me fucking sob in the theater. I got some dad issues, so that's part of the reason why I cry with movies that have anything to do with the dad, you know. But it made me cry just because it had such an emotional impact. And then Guardians 3 made me fucking sob at a few points. It made me cry at quite a few points, and I was just like, wow, this is a heavy fucking movie. And this movie, while it's not quite on that same level of, like, just pure emotional impact as Guardians 2 or Guardians 3, this might be one of Gunn's most infectious movies in terms of its overall, like, vibe and tone. Like, this movie, it makes you feel hopeful. It makes you feel happy. This movie puts a fucking smile on my face when I see it. When I see David Corenswet smiling as he takes to the sky and flies through the air, I feel compelled to just be a little bit happier in that moment, you know? And you could say, oh, you're just a superhero shill, and it's like, sure, what the fuck ever. I do love me a good cape flick. But I've also been waiting for, like, a fun, positive, colorful, hopeful portrayal of Superman for so long. I understand why people like, the Henry Cavill version, and you're allowed to have your, fucking opinion on what you like in a Superman. However, I want him to be a big boy Blue Scout. Fuck, a big blue Boy Scout, I want him to be corny, and his whole, like, sentiment about how, like, his, like, almost corny levels of kindness are the real punk rock, I think is a declarative statement by James Gunn, talking about how in a society where social media encourages us to be so negative and so hostile towards each other, maybe just being kind to strangers and trying to be good to your fellow man is the real punk rock nowadays. And I think that's a beautiful message to be putting out in the world right now, especially with where we're at, David Corenswet was absolutely fantastic in this movie. Edie Gathegi, I'm so fucking sorry if I butchered that name. Fantastic as Mr. Terrific. I'm glad he got redemption, because the way they fucking did him in X-Men First Class, bullshit. That was bullshit. And also, they kind of did him dirty in the makeup department in Twilight. So I feel like him getting like a cool role that everybody liked him in was kind of like reparations in a sense, you know? Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner was great. When I found out that they were going to have him as Guy Gardner instead of Hal Jordan, I was like, okay, James knows what he's doing. This is smart. I'm a big fan of how they used him in the movie. Metamorpho was good. I think was it Jonathan? I can't remember his last name, but I know he has alopecia, and he's in Barry. He was good in the movie too. And I mean, Nicholas Hoult. Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. Oh my god, dude, top tier hater, dude. My favorite scene of Lex Luthor was that scene where he's just so fucking pissed after Superman escapes the prison. He just keeps knocking over cups, dude. That right there, I was like, yes. You know, and I feel like he very much captured like kind of the insane hater energy of Luthor and like how far Luthor will go just to embarrass or beat or prove his superiority to Superman. Like that felt very on brand. You know, Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane felt good. It was nice to see like Lois portrayed in a way where she's actually kind of a hound as a reporter, and that whole interview scene between her and Clark, that 12-minute fucking dialogue heavy scene flows so well, not only because of Brosnahan and Corrin Sweat's chemistry, but because I think it feels true to the character of Lois Lane, and this feels like something she would do. It feels like, you know, something a hard-nosed reporter who's committed to journalistic integrity and getting the truth would do. She wouldn't give Clark any, like, easy questions or softball shit he can just, you know, easily just use to fluff himself up like Clark would do if he were interviewing himself as Superman. You know what I mean? And introducing us to that, like, kind of little bit of conflict between the two of them through that scene and setting the stage for how their relationship will progress throughout the film it's done so well in that one scene. I might not be articulating myself the best, but I hope you're getting what I'm saying, right? And listen, I love Amy Adams, but her and Henry Cavill, I never bought them for a second. Even when I was like 12 and 13, I was like, yeah, this is bullshit. You know, whereas like, you know, Corrin Sweat and Brosnahan, I'm like, yo, whoever's married to these two motherfuckers, you better check them. Better check them, because they might have been fucking on that Daily Planet desk. You know what I mean? Whew. Yeah, but Superman, man. This movie it filled me with, you know, just this sense of hope and like, fuck yeah, and like it's not gonna all be total shit, you know, even though, you know, the current stage where we're at in the world would point that it might get really shitty, but, you know, I'm gonna choose to kind of ignore that. Plus, you know, in terms of big budget superhero movies, there hasn't been another big budget superhero movie I've seen that's been like this ostensibly anti-Israel in terms of how it portrays that conflict. So shout out to James Gunn for just having the balls to do that, dude, because as we've seen, because there's, you know, unfortunately a lot of Zionists in Hollywood, there's a lot of people who don't have the balls to do that, but James Gunn did, so shout out to him. And now, oh shit, we're at an hour 2. I didn't even fucking realize that. Oh my god, well look at that. Look at that. We just got through a whole episode. Now, I hope you like this. If you did like this, maybe share it around, I guess. I don't really know what this is. I think this is just something I'm wanting to do on the side, but I'm hoping to do more of it. And this was my Summer of Cinema 2025 review. This has been Panda's Media Corner, Episode 1. I'll catch you guys later.